Yes, you are now listening to the sounds of Sports Reports' Order. 2-5 is here, and I love Farmageddon, your unorthodox statistician going left so much you thought I was southpaw. And I got with me the one and only Even Kill, raised in Texas, or born in Texas, raised in VA, representing New Jerusalem. He wants you to know that if it wasn't for Jersey, there would be no America, because more battles of the Revolutionary War were fought in New Jersey than any other state. He is Mr. Logical. And do not, I repeat, do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
But do like, review, subscribe, share, rate, do all the free things. Do all the good things. So let's get this started. It's rivalry week. We in here. Tennessee down here getting beat on by Vanderbilt. 17-7. You got Ohio State trailing Michigan 7-3 in the second quarter. Loser, leaves town match. Ryan Day about to be on the first thing smoking. They're going to put that man on a Greyhound to keep up.
They're going to put him on a public bus.
Yes, but Mr. Logical.
Yeah.
Woo! Did the Buffaloes put it on the Cowboys yesterday?
I'm a man. I'm 40.
Yeah, he a man, and he about to be fired too. 52-0. They went 0-9. We were talking about how the SEC doesn't play non-conference games. They went 0 in the Big 12. 0.
Doesn't make any sense.
Didn't win one game with Ollie Gordon.
It doesn't make any sense when you're that big of a school in that kind of region where you can just recruit at that level. Oklahoma State, Texas, like the area just around the states around your state and within your state, and you can't capitalize and build a proper team with the transfer portal, the booster money that you have coming into the school. You should never go 0-9 in conference, especially when you have the talent and the size to match up. That's coaching. That's either motivating or schematics. Like it's something there, because in a fist fight, if you are the same size as the person you're in the fight with, you should be able to land a couple of punches.
Right.
Especially if it's like, yo, we gonna fight. You ready to fight? Let's fight. And we throwing hands. You shouldn't be out here going 0 for 30 in a fist fight when you matched up physically with the other person. That's like that schematic, that style, that's whatever you've been taught. But if you can't get a win in the Big 12, that's just grounds. Like somebody gave up. I don't know if the coaching staff gave up. I don't know if people were just like, you know what? Like October, they're like, listen, this is not gonna be our year. I'm just trying to ride this out and not get hurt and hit the transfer portal and go to Colorado next year, or go to Ohio State, or go to Texas, or go somewhere else. Because to go 0-9, that means a lot of people.
Yeah. So Colorado is right on the step of the Big 12 title game. So congrats, Coach Prime, because a lot of people didn't have you making it this far. I said that best case scenario was 9-3 to start the season. I thought 7-5 was most likely. So, I wasn't one of the naysayers per se, but Colorado still needs help. They need 2 of Iowa State, BYU, and Arizona State to lose today. They need 2 of those 3. Any 2, does not matter what 2. So there we go. Arizona State got their Commonwealth rivalry game against Arizona. Iowa State, of course, has Farmageddon at home in Ames, Iowa against Kansas State. And BYU has a matchup with the Houston Cougars. But as I was looking at that game, Colorado's defense doesn't get the credit that they deserve. They're probably the most improved unit as a whole on this team, because Shador was already good last year. They still don't necessarily run the ball that well, but you had Travis Hunter last year. You had Horn. You brought in Wester this year and Will Shepherd. You got my guy, Nakai Hill-Green out of Michigan at linebacker leading the defense. Shiloh another year. So the defense has put Colorado in this position to make the Big 12 title game, even though the offense will get all the credit.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because the offense is always going to get a lot of credit. I think the poor performance against Kansas last week, if you felt like the defense was helping them out and the defense was improved, and then you like to say the most recent history is the greatest history, in people's mind.
Right.
So seeing them get run on as much as they did last week against Kansas, it shifted back to now they go 52-0.
Right.
It looks like the offense exploded. Like now the defense stopped the other teams.
They held them to 0, right?
They held them to 0. So it's like you got to give them credit. But I think the most recent, because that Kansas game was probably the toughest loss because now they need 2 out of 3 teams to lose, whereas they control their own destiny. If they could have forced 2 punts, they probably would have won that game.
Right.
Because they were forcing field goal. They were holding the field goal. So I think hopefully, I'd like to see him in the Big 12 championship. That because I think if they win, they get in the college football playoff. I think it's just more chaos for the committee to have to deal with. Because I want the committee to deal with all the smoke they have to deal with.
Right.
Because I want to hear the BS. I want to hear the justifications for this team getting in and these 4 conference teams from the same conference getting. I want to hear all of it. So I need as much BS on their desk as much they can decipher and come out to the public and stand at these podiums and just flat out lie to us. I'm just waiting on that part. I know what's going to happen. It's going to be outrage. If you're a team on the bubble, don't do the camera with all the players in the cafeteria thing. You're going to be disappointed, just like Florida State last year. Don't do it.
All right. So I'm going to give you a couple of stats real quick. And I want you to tell me what you think the final score of this game was.
All right.
All right. So this is Nebraska at Iowa. Here we go. First downs, Nebraska 20, Iowa 5. Total yards, Nebraska 334, Iowa 164. Rushing yards, 144 to 49. Third downs, 8 for 17 for Nebraska, 0 for 10 for Iowa. Time of possession, Nebraska 39-01, Iowa 20-59. What was the score of that game?
I didn't look, so I'm going to just take a wild guess. It seems like outrageous would say Iowa won. That's what I'm going to go with. I'm going to say they won 20-13.
They won 13-10. And that's with Nebraska starting out with a 10-0 lead. So Nebraska fans, I'm sorry, you gotta wait till year 3.
Your Super Bowl was beating Colorado.
But they are going to a bowl game. They won last week, and so they broke the streak.
Bowl games don't count.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? They going in there. What up, James? You know what I'm saying? We sitting up in here Iowa turned the corner this year. They were scoring 30 points in games. They put up 40 burgers. And then here you go, right back to Iowa being Iowa. But the game of the day was probably down in Athens, Georgia. And this is another one of those crazy, moments, right? So the Georgia senior class that is graduating this year has not lost to Florida, Georgia Tech, Tennessee, or Auburn. So all their rivals, they swept over the last 4 years. But it didn't come without controversy. Georgia Tech went up 17-0 last night. Haynes King was out here looking like he watched Cam Newton videos before the game. He was running all over Georgia, making Georgia look like the team that we said, why is this team in the playoff? So, of course, time goes on. The game continues. Then we had the Arrowhead refs come through. It was 4th down and goal. Georgia, incomplete pass, and it was tipped. And they call it pass interference. Then the couple drives later, Haynes King trying to run the clock out, kept the ball, faked it, kept it, got hit in the jaw with a helmet. And so in a normal scenario, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't call it targeting. I'm like, hey, this is football, XYZ. But I see the way the game has emphasized protecting the quarterback. So when I see a quarterback getting hit in his head, hitting the jaw with a helmet, I can't help but say, if that was Carson Beck that had got hit by Georgia Tech, I can't help but say that. And it sucks because I don't want to be that guy, but it just is what it is. You go 8 overtimes. All Georgia Tech had to do was hand the ball off to keep playing, but everybody wants to get cute. And Kirby Smart even said it after the game. They out physicaled us. That was Kirby Smart that said that. That's not 2-5's analysis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that goes to show you that some of these coaches just can't get out of their own way.
You see it at all levels. Like I said, I do the announcements. I did the announcements a couple weeks ago for the youth football league that my son was in. They asked me to do the announcements, and I'm up there. And it was, since the playoffs, I'm in the booth. There's a ref that has to work the clock.
Right.
So we're watching one of the games, and the other team, they were young. They were young team. I think they were like 11 and 12-year-olds. But the quarterback had an arm. But they kept throwing go routes to a point where even our team, our home team, they knew, it was like, yo, all they're throwing is go routes. And I'm sitting up in the booth and I'm talking to the coach. I'm like, yo, I think if you just hand it off, they probably get some yards. But they just kept throwing these go routes. It's like, or you throw a post. They were throwing slants and go routes, even on like fourth down. I'm like, yo, just throw it in the middle of the field. The safety was one of the small. He was a good athlete, but he's a smaller kid. You had big wide receivers. I'm like, throw it in the middle of the field, because they were just locking on man to man all the way up the field. And it's like, you're just hoping that your guy beats him. I'm like, get him in space. But they just kept throwing the same go routes. They just kept throwing. I was like, yo, you guys are just you're calling these plays and you're not giving your team the best chance. Because then they get a sack or they get a bad snap, and I was like 3rd and 20. I'm like, this is youth football. Just pop the run play or throw it short and let's get somebody in space. But it's like, nope, we're throwing these go balls. And they're like, all right, cool. 4th down, go ball, turnover on downs. And he's like, coach, like they just get, sometimes coaches get in their own way. Like, let the players, let the Jimmies and the Joes make the plays. Like, you already have your game plan, but let them come to the sideline and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And if you let them try it twice, it's like, hey, these go balls aren't working. Let's try this. But it has to be a back and forth. And I think sometimes coaches just ruin. You can ruin your season because, like, everyone's clamoring to get to the college football playoff. And then there's a lot of teams that want to play spoilers. I think if you're not in the college football playoff bubble window or whatever the case may be, I think playing spoilers is probably like the best thing you could do. I think your teams love it. It probably keeps guys hired. Like going 7-5, but your 7th win was to knock a rival out of playoff contention. That rings bells in the hallways of your campus. So I think sometimes they're just getting their own way when they have those opportunities.
So how about this? 37 carries, 226 yards. Guess who?
Ashton Jeanty.
Ashton Jeanty. You know what I mean? He is now 341 yards away from breaking Barry Sanders' record. Only problem is
Barry do it in.
He did it. That's what I was about to bring up. Barry did it in 12. So this is going to be game number 13 next week for Ashton Jeanty in the Mountain West title game. We're going to see who they're going to play. Colorado State won yesterday, so they're still alive. If UNLV beats Nevada today, we'll get the Boise UNLV rematch. If UNLV goes down, Colorado State slides in.
And then they'll get the bowl game. Yeah. Those records, when it comes like those yardage records, I think it's very tough, especially when you get 2 more games. Like Barry Sanders had 3 or 4 200-yard games that year.
Yeah, he had a 300-yard game too.
Yeah, so it's a little different. I'm not trying to take anything away from it. I think it's commendable, obviously, to break a record. But when you get 2 more bites at the apple, it kind of like
right
on it. Yeah.
So as it is right now, as it is at this moment right now, this is the 5th best single season rushing mark that has happened in college football history. The only people ahead of Ashton Jeanty, you might know these names: Marcus Allen, Kevin Smith, Melvin Gordon, and Barry Sanders himself. So 341 yards to go. So sidebar, is he the Heisman?
No. I would say no.
Okay.
But I wouldn't argue that you are wrong if you had him as your Heisman because of the pace he's on to break the record, fifth most rushing yards in college football history. I completely understand that piece of it.
Right.
I just think that what Travis Hunter is doing in Colorado is indicative of what I think the Heisman is. Like Heisman's supposed to be like the most outstanding college football player. I think what he does on both sides of the ball at the level that he's projected to be a top draft pick, top 5 at either position. Like they're expecting teams to draft him and have him wide receiver cornerback. That's where he's projected at the next level. So what he's doing at this level, it's not like he's just out there getting jet sweeps and just using speed to take to the house. He's high pointing the ball. He has some of the most spectacular catches of this season, to include catches he had last year. But he started off the year with the catch against Colorado State, the catch he had last night, interceptions. It's just like, I think what he's doing on both sides of the ball and I think the spotlight on the school is another thing. He has to perform that way because of the spotlight that rains down on Colorado. Like you see, the stands were packed yesterday. It's just so much, I think, is riding on his shoulders because he's attached to the hip to the Sanders family, and I think to perform at that level every week, even last week against Kansas, he was like on the sideline, like, give me the ball. The next time they gave him the ball on a little bubble screen, he made one guy miss at the line of scrimmage, got a block and took it to the house. It's just that's something that he does. And people talk like, oh, I saw a Twitter post today because he has 1,036 yards receiving, which is like 7th in NCAA. And the post said, I'm supposed to believe this is the Heisman. I'm like, yeah, he's a cornerback.
Well, he also
had 1,000 yards rushing and 100 tackles. You'd be like, yeah, that dude's doing.
But also, if you look at the people in front of him, and I don't want to do the team thing, you know what I mean? But if you look at the people in front of him and look at the success of their teams, then you understand why he's in the race. So like you got Nick Nash out at San Jose State, Teteroa McMillan from Arizona, who was supposed to be a Big 12 contender, but they're probably not even going to make a bowl game, so that has to be factored in as well. Harold Fannin Jr. from Bowling Green that nobody saw play. Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas, Arkansas middle tier SEC team. Ty Felton of Maryland, who probably won't make a bowl game. So when you encapsulate all that and look at it, Travis Hunter impacts winning. And that's the difference between him and the people that are ahead of him. Also, he's one of the best corners in college football. I don't necessarily know, and I won't call him a shutdown corner per se, but he's good enough to get the job done. But when I look at the Thorpe Award, because Dion made the big fuss about how could he not be there for the Thorpe Award, and then you look at the candidates that are, you got Malachi Starks from Georgia, you got Caleb Downs from Ohio State, and you got Jahdae Brown from Texas. I think all three of them are better than Travis Hunter as a defensive back. That doesn't mean that he's a bum. That doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve the praise that he's getting. But I don't think, if you're just looking at it from the standpoint of this guy is a Heisman candidate, he's the likely Heisman candidate, he should be in line for an award at his position. I completely understand that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you look at what these other guys are doing, you're just giving Travis the credit for playing both sides of the ball.
Yeah, but the thing with college football awards, there's 134 programs, or 132 eligible programs. To narrow down to 3 or 4 guys has to be tough, and everybody can't get invited. I'm glad it's only 3 names because it's like, what's the point of having 12 names? It's like
right.
Like 1 to 4, 1 to 3, that range, that's close enough for people to vote on. If you got a guy in there you got 12 guys in there, like kind of the football playoff, 6 through 12 aren't going to match up with 1 through 5. So I understand, like, narrow it down to 3 to make it simple on the voters. But there's so many different awards that feel like they mean the same thing. Like the Davey O'Brien, that's the best quarterback.
Yes.
Right? But Shador just won a different best quarterback award.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the year
And
that
you got the Maxwell,
I
which
remember
is like the
one year
overall best player.
Max Dugan, he won the Davy O'Brien, and
And
then
Caleb Williams won the Heisman.
Caleb Williams won the Heisman, but I think somebody else won the Maxwell that didn't win the Heisman, but a quarterback won. I think the quarterback won the Maxwell, a different quarterback won the Heisman, and Max Dugan won the best quarterback award.
Right.
Like, so
and it's because there's different people voting on it.
Yeah, but some of them are like the same.
Like they're media members, but it's not the same people.
They're the same show. It's like the same award ceremony. It's like I think the Davy O'Brien and Maxwell are given out by the same foundation.
Right.
So, like stuff like that just kind of confuses me.
But I think that those things mean different things, though. Like so for example, right? Like a lot of people say that Aaron Rodgers is the best thrower of the football, or he makes the way that he throws it, the back shoulder, all that stuff. He has the complete toolkit of quarterback throws. But you wouldn't say that he's one of the best quarterbacks ever, as far as if you were ranking maybe your top 5 to 7. Some people might leave Aaron Rodgers out.
Yeah, makes sense. But like they don't give an award for best throw of the football.
Right.
Like if they gave an award, like even with the NFL, the MVP is normally like a quarterback, but offensive player of the year seems to be one of the other skill position players.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is it? Like if I'm the MVP of the league, like I'm Patrick Mahomes, that year he threw over 50 touchdowns. I'm the offensive player of the year also. Like I am the offense. I threw 50 touchdowns. No, that award doesn't go to anybody else. I get the MVP can have some ambiguity to it, but if I threw 50 touchdowns, the dude who ran for 11 is not offensive player of the year. Like I am.
Well, that's what frustrated me last year because I was on board with Christian McCaffrey as the MVP, but he got the Opoi, and it was just kind of like, why? Like, is the Opoi like the makeup award? Like,
it's the makeup award.
We couldn't give you this, so here you are.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of these awards is just, like I said, different. If you don't want the same region, like if it's a foundation based out of New York, and they think life stops at the Hudson,
right?
They don't see anybody who plays west of the Mississippi, so all the awards are guys who play either big time LA football, like USC, UCLA, or they play in the SEC, and like that seems to be all their awards. So you need more foundations coming up with awards. You need different voters, because if you think about it, how many college football writers at the New York Post or somewhere in DC are writing about Colorado State versus UNLV? Like that game isn't on their radar.
Right.
So you can have a standout stud cornerback that plays in UNLV, but if all the voters are in New York, Maryland, Virginia, and somewhere down south, then all of the players that are going to get recognized are going to be coming from those regions as well.
Right.
Yeah, Deion's a master of, planting that seed. Some people just have the gift of gab. When they ask them about the whole, I'm not going to tell the voters they should vote for it. They should already know. They should already see. I don't have anything for them. They should already know that since week 3. So like the whole time he's saying I don't have anything to say to them, he's telling them exactly what he thinks in between each statement of not. So it's the master class in word usage.
Yeah, that's all it is. And so when you look at this though, these awards, for example, it's just hard because none of them are defined. Like how are you defining Heisman? Like you're saying, like most outstanding player. So to say that, Travis Hunter fits that definition to the T, because he's impactful on both sides of the ball in the same ways. When you look at Ashton Jeanty,
in his snap, he's the best player on the field all day long.
Right. And when you look at Ashton Jeanty, the problem is that the conference that he plays in. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and act like the Big 12 is murderer's row or something like that. But Ashton Jeanty played against such stalwarts as Wyoming. You know what I mean?
Shout out Josh Allen.
Yeah, shout out to Josh Allen. You know what I mean? Like they beat up on Washington State. They beat up Oregon State yesterday. So I mean, so when you look at it, I mean, not that those two teams are in the Mountain West, but Oregon is the only team of consequence besides UNLV that Boise State played this year. So it's that whole argument we were having last week about the SEC teams. Like, you're getting credit for losing to a good team, regardless of who you beat.
Correct.
But Ashton Genty is getting credit because he played a good game against the number one team, and then everybody else was people that he should step over. Now, granted, you're going to get the argument, if it was that easy, everybody would do it.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So that's factual. I
that's what I said. Like, and that's why I wouldn't. If somebody said I think Ashton Genty's the Heisman, I wouldn't throw Travis Hunter stats at him. I would be like, you make a valid point. But if you said to me Dylan Gabriel's a Heisman, I'm like, nah.
Yeah, I'm like, he just plays for the number one team.
He just plays for number one
team. And I still think,
and that used to be the default way.
And from when we had our conversation a few weeks ago, I still think Shedeur should be a part of the conversation. You know what I mean? Cam Ward probably should still be a part of the conversation. But those are the two. Like, those are the two front runners. It's going to be one of those two.
It's just the thing with quarterbacks, like we said, there's probably 5 to 8 quarterbacks with very similar numbers for the top teams. Like Quinn Ewers, I think he missed a couple of games, but if you look at his averages per game, if you look at Will Hire in Ohio State, Gabriel.
Hell, Kyle McCord leads the nation in passing right now.
Yeah, so it's like a lot of those guys, they don't.
Ohio State could use him today.
They don't even separate. They don't really separate from each other. So it's like, out of you 5 quarterbacks, all of you are pretty much giving us the same numbers.
Right.
Genty separated himself from the other running backs in the country. Travis Hunter has separated himself from the other athletes in the country. So, like, that's why I think either direction, they're 1 and 2. You can mix in 1, maybe 2 more players, maybe another top tier defensive player, because I think these guys are game changers. Because there's so much space in college football, and it's, you see it when I was playing a video game, I'm like, there's no way this screen pass should go for a touchdown. Even when I was like scoring it, like, there's no way. But then you watch a game and it's like, oh, this happens a lot. Like, you get reminded, like, 1 missed tackle on the open field and this guy's taking it to the house. So having like a top tier defender who's 140 tackles in 12 games, those guys should be recognized as well. Because like I said, the quarterbacks are going to be the same. Your top 5 quarterbacks are going to have around 40 passing touchdowns, 3,000-4,000 yards. They're going to have probably some rushing touchdowns off RPOs. They're normally going to get all of the credit. So the guys who separate themselves, in my opinion, I think those guys deserve more Heisman motivation, more steam, and more Heisman recognition.
And here's some scores of note real quick. So Michigan 10, Ohio State 3 with about a minute 40 left in the second quarter. You got Tennessee just tied the game against Vanderbilt with an 86-yard touchdown pass to Dante Thornton. So 17-17.
Big plays is happening.
Yep. Louisville 20, Kentucky nothing. South Carolina and Clemson at halftime 7-7 in the Palmetto Bowl. Winner of that game might be getting in the playoffs, but we'll come back to that. So while we're here, I guess we'll skip over to NFL for a second and just keep it here. Yep. So here we go. It's that time. It's my favorite time of the show.
Mike's about to get in this bag, y'all.
You know what I'm saying? Some full coverage, some straight up. So, of course, yesterday we had some games going on, so I cashed in Minnesota straight up over Wisconsin, and I cashed in Utah +9 at UCF. But let's get to some games today. So today, give me Kennesaw State covering 12 against FIU. Give me Syracuse to cover the 11 against Syracuse. Watch out for the outright upset there. Give me.
That you said?
Huh?
Who was that you said?
Syracuse covering 11 against Miami. Give me Fresno State to cover 9 against UCLA. In the game that I just mentioned the score from, Vandy covering 11 against Tennessee. So those are your full coverages. Here's my actual upsets that I'm picking today. Against my better judgment, give me USC over Notre Dame. Give me Baylor over Kansas. Baylor's up 21-10 right now, headed into halftime. So just to show you that I'm not cherry picking, I had West Virginia over Texas Tech, and Texas Tech is up 28-3 right now. So give me Kansas State winning Farmageddon against Iowa State. So there you go. And then I got a couple more that we're going to get to here in a second. So starting off top, for the first time since 2011, for the first time since Justin Tucker hit the game-winning field goal, we got Texas and Texas A&M. The state is on fire. This is a matchup that should have happened every year. They were acting like the Oklahoma schools, a bunch of bitches that should be having bedlam right now. But, politics, conference realignment, hurt feelings, so on and so forth. But we got the game we deserve.
Better. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, listen, we are going to get an exception to keep our rivalry game. You guys can deal with it. You can dock us points or you can take away a home game, but we're playing our rivalry game every year with our in-state rival.
Yeah, just like me. I'm the only one that cares about the border war, Missouri and Kansas. They're going to play next year for the first time since Missouri left the Big 12. No excuse for that. But anyway, the game is finally here. The winner of this game will play Georgia next week in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. Quinn Ewers had an MRI on the ankle. Sounds like he's okay. We'll see. Maybe we'll see a little arch and some cleanup tonight. But look, Texas A&M got dealt a heavy blow when they lost Le'Veon Moss for the season 2 weeks ago. I was prepared to pick Texas A&M to win this game until that injury happened. So now I'm going to go with Texas because I don't know if Texas A&M can move the ball on Texas's defense. To counter that, I don't know if Texas can move the ball on Texas A&M's defense. But I think Texas has more talent is the problem. So, yes, it might be a low-scoring game. You might see something like 20-17, something along those lines. And I'm going to just take the team that has the most talent, even though inside, I'm going to be cheering for the Aggies.
Yeah. I mean, you do send money there.
I do send money there. But I got to be honest. I got to keep it real.
Yeah. I like Texas because, like I said, I'm going to beat this over the head. X's and O's and Jimmy's and Joe's. Texas just has guys that one missed tackle and it's a house call. They have the quarterback. I like a quarterback that's seasoned, a few years in, transfer a little bit, maybe a couple of different coaches. I like a guy with some resolve, a guy's battled through injuries, So, and I think football teams rally around quarterbacks who play through injuries, who come back. They've seen them probably hobbled all week, or since the last time they see him in the hallway. They see him with the trainer. When you see a guy that just gets up, that's something you can ride. You can ride with. So, Texas.
All right, and Ohio State just tied the game. Will Howard to Jeremiah Smith. But
they should be doing that all game long.
All game long.
Like, it should be post routes and post corners, double moves all game long. It was like, why are we doing anything else?
Right. So Texas has a lot of motivation here. Not only do they get to go to the SEC championship game, but they get a rematch with Georgia if they win this game. Texas A&M, on the other hand, they live in that Arkansas world where they live to beat Texas. Sometimes they want Texas to lose more than they want to win. So I don't know if this is a thing or not, but I feel like A&M might come out a little too jacked up. And how fitting would it be if you know the history of Texas and Texas A&M? How fitting would it be for the Longhorns to play for the SEC championship before Texas A&M, even though Texas A&M had a 12-year head start? That's just how it goes. That's just how it goes.
Equally of a bad run too, because Texas A&M went through a few coaches. They had some down years. They're still paying Jimbo Fisher like $1 million a minute to not coach there.
Right.
So it's not like Texas just been like this powerhouse for all these years, and it is like they've had their ups and downs too. So it's like not only are they going to play in the conference championship before you, they've had a similar run. So you can't be like, oh, we've been down for so many years. Now they were like, no, we're in the same boat.
Mm-hmm.
We're running the same pace. Now we're outpacing you. So it's just, it's fun. So I think, like I said, sometimes you can come out a little too fired up. the better team, but a higher ranked team and a team with more on the line could get flustered. We're seeing it now with like Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah, I expect a lot of penalties. And, as far as Ohio State and Michigan goes, I'm not surprised by the score right now. When I saw the line at 20.5 and it crossed 21 at one point, I was like, do people not watch Ohio State Michigan games? Like, no game ever gets that bad. You know what I mean? And not only that,
say that,
but not only that,
but Michigan play a little harder. They probably run a little harder. They block a little harder in these games. I get it, but when you have such a deficit at the most important position, like their defense is legit. Their quarterback, like if you shut down the run game of Michigan, there's no quarterback that slices.
You can't do. You can't do it,
and that's probably why they keep those 330 pounds.
You know what I mean? And then, and even though Will Johnson has been injured, and you got Jair Hill on the other side, who I'm gonna be keeping my eye on for the NFL draft next year, not this draft, but the next draft, because that guy is going to be a great NFL cornerback. But for right now, he's there at Michigan. Michigan is their defensive line is going to be able to push Ohio State's offensive line around, especially with the injuries that we talked about last week.
Yeah.
Losing their center, already down their left tackle. So I'm not surprised by this score. Now, if Michigan actually wins the game,
you'll be surprised.
I'll be surprised. But I was thinking something along the lines of 27-21.
Yeah, if Michigan wins, I think it'll be a coaching. It won't be an Eberflus, but I think it'll be Ryan Day playing tight because he knows I don't care what any coach or any public professional person says, any celebrity or pseudo celebrity, if they say, I don't even pay attention to social media, that's a lie. Like if you open your phone, any app you open on your phone, like I think about stuff and it pops up on my phone. So I know stuff being typed about you is coming to your phone. Like
right.
Someone's showing it to you, someone close to you sees it. Everybody around you doesn't ignore social media because you get to the podium and say, I don't even pay attention to stuff like that. He knows the heat is on.
Hey, if he
I feel like I said, I don't think it should be. I personally don't think it should be. And he probably thinks the same thing. But
well, hopefully the Philadelphia Eagles have a jet ready to pick him up. I know he used to be on their staff many moons ago. So he better hope he got a ride. He better hope Greyhound is functioning. He better hope there's no inclement weather because if he loses this game, he better win the national title. I'll put it like that.
You know what? If they fire, like I'm Ryan Day, I'm petty. If they fire you for losing Michigan, you know what I do? I go Kevin Durant on them. I go join Michigan.
They wanted to fire him for losing to Oregon.
It must be a personality thing because it's not a performance thing.
Well, I think that Ohio State got
drunk. They were a missed field goal away from being in the national championship game against TCU a couple years ago.
They got drunk off of Urban Meyer. He came in there. He showed Ohio State how it should be running. You know what I mean? They got used to that. So Ryan Day was Urban Meyer's guy. So they thought, hey, more of the same is in our future.
I think he's following the blueprint. He has
he's a good coach. I think he's a good coach.
The semifinal game against Georgia, when Kirby Smart noticed something was up on that fake punt and he called that timeout. It's just like something that simple. Just it changed the game. But like I said, they still were a reasonable. It was like a 42-yard field goal. It was like a reasonable field goal. I know C.J. Stroud talks about he wished he would have gotten closer or gotten the ball in the end zone. But like, listen, you gave him a shot.
You got one job.
He kicked a terrible kick.
Well, two jobs. I guess you got to take care of kickoff too. But my other upset, with South Carolina, I was picking them straight up over Clemson. The winner of this game may get into the playoff. We'll see what Tennessee is doing. It was 17-17 last night, or 17-16. Looks like they had actually missed the extra point. Or it is 17-17. Sorry, just
17-17.
Yeah, so 17-17. They're about to go to halftime with Vanderbilt. So you get, if Tennessee loses this game and you get them out the way, somebody else loses. The winner of this South Carolina Clemson game could get into the playoff because if nothing else, you say my very last data point is a top 12 win. Now, I don't necessarily agree and think that either one of them should get in, but I'm just saying that the way that it's structured right now, the winner is set up nice.
Game.
Yeah, but the problem for South Carolina is, and this is where back to your original point about the committee and their BS.
Yeah.
The problem is that Ole Miss and Bama are in front of South Carolina. Ole Miss and Bama beat South Carolina. So it's going to be hard to jump them over teams that they beat, but we've seen it before. And I don't think they're going to jump over Bama. But to Bama's point, Bama just lost by 21 to an unranked team. So stop trying to sit up here and act like this was 2 years ago where they lost on a 2-point conversion or they lost on a field goal. Yeah. They got their asses whipped. Mr. Logical said it the other day, 250 rushing yards. But the good news for Alabama, Auburn has not won in Tuscaloosa since Cam Newton was the quarterback. They've lost those games.
Cam Newton's retired from the NFL.
They lost those games by an average of 26.7 points per game. Alabama is favored by 11.5. For some strange reason, I'm taking Auburn to cover. But I think Bama wins.
I think it's tough for the Bama players, especially guys who were raised on Saban, and they get another coach in. Saban's not losing by 21 to Oklahoma. Saban could have showed up Friday night and said, hey, I'm coaching tomorrow. With all of the other teams' preparation and been like, you know what? I can coach us to victory, and I haven't been here all year. I think Saban just kind of had that effect. And I believe, it kind of circulates throughout the players. It's like, man, Saban would never have us out here throwing this many passes. If you're a running back at Alabama, you're getting the ball. I'm getting 15 touches. I'm getting 15 rounds. I'm getting some screens. My backup's going to get 12. We run this ball 30, 32 times. But now we got 20 targets to the freshman here. We got Jalen Milroe running quarterback options. I'm back here. Stop using me as a blocker and give me the ball and let him skedaddle to the other side. Let me do my thing as a running back. So as long as they stick to that, because that's how you set the tone in a rivalry game. Because if you come out here and passing and you run those same screen plays that got jumped last week by Oklahoma corners, and Auburn grabs a couple of those and you find yourself down 10-0, 14-0 early, not a lot of resolve on that sideline because, like I said, a lot of these guys are raised on Saban. Saban will never have us in this position, at least in their mind. Or Saban would get us through this. It's we don't know if this new guy can do that.
Right. Yep. So ECU, we talked about how they fired Mike Houston a couple of weeks ago. They lost to Navy yesterday, but after they fired him, 4-1, Penn State, they survived against Minnesota last week, so I think they're safely in the playoff. They still have a chance for the Big Ten title if Ohio State loses this game to Michigan, tied at halftime.
Do you want to play? If you're a one-loss Big Ten school, do you want to play in the conference championship?
I say yes.
You want to just sit on the outside? Do you want to be third?
I say yes. I say that you want to play because if you win, that's the thing though. You got to win. If you beat Oregon, you get a bye. So that might be worth it within itself.
We talked about that bye though. Well, that's the thing.
Well, it depends on who ends up at 8-9. It depends.
But if you don't play in the conference championship game, that's your bye.
Right, and you get a home game anyway, depending on who you are.
Depends on how where you rack up.
And that's the thing. If Ohio State if Ohio State wins this game today, and then beats Oregon next week, they probably take over that number one spot. So
that gets you, but that still gets you as Big Ten. You get Ohio State, you still get Oregon in, you get Penn State, and you get Indiana. I like Penn State, Indiana. I'm like, I'm good. I want to win this week. I want to play my 12th game. I want to finish the year 11-1, and I want Ohio State and Oregon to risk their seeding and their players and their coaches or whoever else can fall out from a win or a loss, because 2-loss Ohio State loses against Oregon. It's like, if I'm Penn State, I'm in. I'm in over them.
That might be the difference between
in over them.
Winning or losing to Oregon could be the difference between having a bye or going to Georgia.
So So yeah, it's because you and I we talked about this. Well, you brought it up when we first saw the playoff format, and you said being the fifth seed, you felt is the best seed. And then I saw Joe Klatt take your take, and he just did it on TV. And I'm like, yeah, my man said that 3 months ago.
Yeah.
Give us credit. Sports in Order.
And like I said, it depends on the bracket. Because if you're 5, like if you're Ohio State right now and you end up at, just as it is today, you end up at 5, your path is Boise or Arizona State and then Boise. And then after that, you're in the semis. Let the chips fall where they may. You know,
but a home game, so that's no home game.
But if you're the 1 seed, depending on how it breaks out, you're like, oh, I get a bye week, and then I got to play against Texas.
But then you're playing on the road because you're playing at a neutral site.
So right, it'll be a bowl game. Yeah.
Road, and it depends on where you are geographically. Like if you're Oregon, if you don't, like I said, I know we were talking about this last week. If you don't play on the West Coast, and you're playing against Texas, and the game just happens to be in Dallas, you're like, what is the point of being a 1
Well, see, luckily the number 1 seed gets the pick, so so I'm sure they would pick the Rose Bowl. But to your point though,
they're the only ones that get the pick.
But if you're playing against a school like Texas, their fans still going to outnumber yours anyway.
Yeah, but I don't want to be in the state. Like Georgia playing all of their SEC championship games in Georgia. It's like, really? We can't move this around? Because Florida's still warm. The state of Florida is still warm. You can play it
in Nashville.
You could put it in a dome, like just another. Who has a dome? Who has an NFL dome?
The Saints.
That's still New Orleans, still down south. It's like something like as far as the SEC. If you travel around the SEC region, who has a dome?
That's it, ain't it?
You got Atlanta. Yeah, I think that's it. So you have to do it in Florida.
Jerry World, I guess.
You go to Jerry World, like at least.
But the Big 12 already has their title game at Jerry World, so that ain't going to work.
I'm pretty sure Jerry wouldn't mind. He's like, play all the games you want. Yeah. But yeah, so it's interesting. I think it's probably for me because like my passion isn't like I demand that this. I just like seeing the chaos, and I want to hear the verbal gymnastics.
Right.
I want to hear because, like we were talking about, the pundits were trying to get Georgia in over Indiana before the Ohio State game, and Indiana's sitting there like, if I'm Indiana's coach, he's already like he's got that smooth cockiness. He's like, listen, man, we'll sit here at 4, and then we'll make the committee get up there and say why we don't belong.
Yeah.
But South Carolina getting in over Alabama is weird. Like it's. I just kind of so Clemson wins. Are they? They're not even playing the ACC championship game, right?
It depends. It depends. If Miami wins today, it's Miami and SMU. Okay. But if Syracuse pulls the upset, it'll be Clemson SMU. And then in the Big Ten, we went over that. So if Ohio State wins today, Oregon, Ohio State. If not, and Penn State wins, Penn State. If Ohio State and Penn State lose, that opens the door for Indiana to get back in. They'd
probably be like, damn, now we got to play. Well, our 2 losses are going to be to number 3 Ohio State and number 1 Oregon.
Yep. And then you got
out of the playoffs, and you're going to have 3 loss SEC schools in
right. Yep. And the cleanest Big 12, the cleanest Big 12 scenario is Iowa State, BYU, and Arizona State all win today. And then we would get Iowa State, Arizona State. That's the cleanest way. And then, of course, there's coming into yesterday before Colorado won, there were 256 different scenarios that could have played out in the Big 12. But Colorado's win eliminated some teams.
256?
Yeah. That's how many different scenarios there were. And then in the Sun Belt, easy. If Louisiana wins against Monroe today, they're in. If Marshall wins at James Madison, they're in. Appalachia State's still alive. South Alabama was alive until yesterday. Texas State knocked them out, so Texas State would be alive as well. The MAC championship game, Miami of Ohio against the Ohio Bobcats. So that one's already set. Army and Tulane's already set. Mountain West, we talked about. UNLV needs to win today to get their rematch with Boise. If not, it's Colorado State. And so I mean, so there you go in a nutshell. That's it. But real quick, before we get out of here, like before we switch over to the NFL, looking at the playoff rankings right now, I was trying to figure out what teams are actual locks. Like what team?
You put it on the screen.
Yeah, I'm about to put it up right now. Like so I'm trying to figure out because there's a few teams that I feel are in regardless of what happens. And so here we go, taking it from the top. So Oregon, I think, is a lock. Even if they lose the Big Ten championship game, I think Oregon's a lock.
I think Notre Dame is a lock.
I don't. Because if they lose today, you got to bring up that Northern Illinois loss again. You know what I mean? Like if they win, you don't worry about it. But if they lose again, and USC, if USC was 9-3 or like something along those lines, maybe not a big deal. But we've been talking about firing Lincoln Riley for the last month. Yeah. So you can't lose that game, rivalry or not. I think Ohio State is a lock. Unless, no, Ohio State's a lock. Even if they lose today, I think the name Ohio State keeps them in.
But you're saying for the college football playoff?
Yes.
So a win today locks.
Well, win today, they're absolutely 100% in.
So
even with a loss,
so they win today. They're 11-1. They play the Big Ten championship game. Lose again to Oregon.
Right.
You still think they're a lock?
Yep, they're a lock. Because you would be like, yo, both of my losses are to the number one team.
Yeah, but you got a lot. It has to count. Like,
and I'm number 2 right now. Like, so how far am I going to fall? Like, if they lose to Michigan, how far do they fall? They're not falling further than 8, maybe 9.
If they lose to Michigan, they're 10-2. Depends on if they if they fire the coach before the playoff ranking come out. Are they that brash?
I don't think they'd do that. But if Ohio State comes out in the second half and doesn't score again, and Michigan wins 38-10, maybe we could have a conversation. But I think they're in. Texas with a win today, I think, is in. I don't think they're quite secure at this moment. Like, I think they need to make the SEC championship game because until today, besides Georgia, today is the first time that they've played a team in the SEC with a winning record. So all the rest of their SEC wins, in conference, I'm talking about, Kentucky, Vandy, so Mississippi State, all those teams have losing SEC records. So A&M would be the first team that they beat with a winning SEC record if they win this game. All right, I think that gets them in. If they lose to A&M, I'd say they could get in just because their name is Texas.
All right, scroll down. So my thing is, as I look at it, in order to keep Ohio State in after a hypothetical Big Ten championship game loss, like I said, they still got to get through Michigan today. You would have to drop somebody out. And you would have to either drop SMU out. Like, it would have to be.
But you know what the problem is?
You would have to shit on somebody else to keep them in.
But
because they're Ohio State.
But you know what the problem is? They also have a win over the current number 4 and the current number 10. And their only loss right now is to number 1.
Yeah,
you can't keep them out.
So Indiana has to get punished again for the loss to Ohio State because Ohio State lost again. Possibly. I can't wait because that's the scenario I'm thinking about. Because because the committee, because I don't know if it's based solely in numbers. Like, I remember the BCS, people thought it was BS, but at least the math was public as far as we knew. Like, they put the number out there. We don't really know fully how they got to it. It was like a whole calculus problem how they got the number, but they had the number and it was like, listen, Miami is 0.999923 and Auburn is 0.999, and then the team that's third is 0.98. Like, whatever. Like that was the BCS rankings. We saw it clearly. With this, after all the games are played, it's a conversation, and it's a matter of like who's leading the conversation, who's controlling the room, who has the most sway in the room with the voters, who has the most cachet. Because Ohio State with 2 losses, even though they both potentially could be to Oregon as we are projecting forward, should not impact Indiana, who only has 1 loss. Even though
But
it's
it may not.
Ohio.
But it may not be Indiana because you got to remember, right? Next week are the conference title games. So if we end up with Miami and SMU, somebody eliminates somebody. That's a de facto playoff game.
That's what I'm saying. So SMU and Miami are going to play in their conference championship game,
and the loser probably doesn't make it in that
one
scenario.
Of them is going to have 2 losses. Ohio State's going to play potentially in their game, and they could end up with 2 losses.
Or what if Miami wins? What if Miami loses today, and then SMU beats Clemson? Like, you know what I mean? There's still wiggle room here. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not just Indiana. What if Boise loses to UNLV? What if Georgia loses the SEC title game? Like, does Georgia? So that was the question.
Your locks make sense because it's going to be a situation where the teams that are locks, they're just going to figure out where to seed them.
Is Georgia a lock?
They're going to have to, according to public opinion,
because if they lose in the SEC title game,
someone's going to say, "You mean to tell me?" Because so Georgia's 9. They're 10-2.
Yeah, they're 10-2 now. They won yesterday. Yeah.
So the argument's gonna be, you mean to tell me 10-3 Georgia team that just played in the toughest conference championship game and lost to the number whatever Texas is gonna be 2 or 3, is it better than a 11-1 Indiana that didn't play in their own conference championship? That's how Georgia's gonna get in. It's off just the court of public opinion.
And Tennessee just took a 24-17 lead, by the way.
I think Tennessee is going to get that same arc. A lot of the SEC schools, Indiana and SMU, well, Indiana, maybe a little Penn State, and maybe SMU. Those are going to be the teams that the pundits call out publicly for their schedule. I think Boise State is squared away because they have the caveat of winning their conference. But if they don't win their conference, people are going to be like, get them out of here as soon as they can. Like, I think they're waiting on those.
Yeah, UNLV would probably take their place because Tulane lost to Memphis on Thursday night on Thanksgiving. So Tulane was the next one in the chamber because Army went and got their scalp peeled back by Notre Dame last week. And Tulane was supposed to be the next. This is the best G5 team besides Boise. They lost to Memphis. So either you move Army back up, or UNLV gets the credit if they beat Boise for the conference title.
You can blame TCU getting mollywopped on live TV for Army not getting that opportunity because no one they felt it was bad TV. Like, people turned off the game because it was just like it looked like a high school JV team versus Georgia out there.
Right.
So I think people just tuned it out, and I don't think the committee wants that again. So I think they will lobby to get a 10-3 Georgia in over anybody else. Before they let anybody else in, there's going to be people in the room pounding the table for Georgia, possibly Alabama, especially if they dismantle Auburn. Like those 10-2, 9-3, those SEC schools that are on the out, they're going to find a way to get them jumped. Even Penn State's such a name, they're good to go. But if you probably looked at their schedule compared to Indiana, it's probably very similar.
It is, especially when you consider that Penn State, I don't know who their best win is. Like, I guess maybe it's Minnesota. Maybe that's their best win.
And beating USC,
but Minnesota beat USC. So
I mean, like, but like I said, it's gonna, after the games are played, it's gonna be who's the greatest storyteller in the room.
And that's why, like I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, it's bullshit when they say that they start the rankings over every week.
You would get kicked out of the room. I wouldn't get let in because you can be like, wait, hold on. So you want to put this team here? What about this team, this team, this team, and this team? What about this scenario? Blah blah. And they be like, you know what, Mr. Wilson, we no longer need your services. And
Yeah, or you could play the transitive property game, right? It's like Penn State beat Minnesota, who beat USC, who beat LSU, who beat Ole Miss, who beat Georgia, and then
and they're gonna be like, yes, pack up your laptop, take your coffee, and you can never. Because that's not what they want.
I can't believe I actually said all that without messing that up, because it was like it was going in my head. It was going in my head, but yeah. So the NFC West. What's going on in the NFC West? We had the Rams lose last week. The Cardinals lost last week. No Brock Purdy. 49ers lost last week. Seattle beat the Cardinals. Who the hell gonna win the West? And what West teams win this weekend?
Well,
because we got Seattle playing the Jets, on the road. You got the Rams win. You got the Rams going down to the House of Horrors.
I need the Rams to win, so
you got San Francisco going to Orchard Park on Sunday night.
Yeah, they will get that ass.
And you already see the blizzard is already started there. There's going to be snow on the ground more than likely. And then you got the Cardinals going up to Minnesota.
I'm gonna take Minnesota there. Sam Darnold MVP. Nah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I think they'll go 2-2 this weekend. I'm taking Buffalo over San Francisco because I think the playmaker 17 that plays for the Bills, I think he's gonna be the difference in winning and losing. I like Arizona. I like what they've been doing, but they are they're punching above their weight class in a lot of these wins. They aren't really built for longevity and sustaining the wins. I think the entire conference has flaws. If I had to pick a team that could win it, it'd be Seattle. I think they have difference makers in the skill position spots with Njigba and DK, and I think Geno
Lockett.
I think they have that, and then defensively, I think they match up. They have wintertime defensive players. They have big corners.
Yeah,
that run well. I think they just have they have more advantages in those spots.
I want to believe in the Rams, but they keep letting Nas down.
Yeah, and that's the thing. No one. I don't think anyone. They're essentially paying with house money. Geno Smith being a travel guy, I think people just feel like he's bound to turn into the phrase of the year, turn back into a pumpkin. People would say that a lot. But like I said, I just feel like I think LA has expectations and they have questions going forward that are run concurrently with their expectations. Like if they don't get it done this year, what happens to this person, this person, this person? I think those questions are looming while they're playing. I don't think Seattle has any of those.
So who is Eber
San Francisco?
Who is Eberflus calling defense for next year?
Probably like a really, really good high school in Illinois if he stays in state. I like let's get into it. So right. I'm with Rach and her family. I met her uncle's house, big TV set up, and he gets sacked. And I was getting up. Once he got sacked, I got up to go get another drink because I figured they're about to call his timeout. So I'm sitting on the couch. He gets sacked. 30 seconds left. I'm like, so I get up, okay, call a timeout. I'm like, yo, call a timeout. Call a timeout. And I'm like, and Rachel's like, she's like, yo, they can't hear you. And I'm like, they should be listening. And I was like, okay, 20 seconds. They're going to call a timeout now. I'm like, 15. I'm like, I'm still standing. I'm like, who? And then they snap the ball. And then I'm like, is he about to get sacked again? But if he would have got sacked, it probably helped him because he could have called a timeout. Mm-hmm. But he throws the ball, just throws it up. And then when it hits the ground, I was like, please let them have 1 second left. Just because they worked so hard to come back. Please let this ball hit the ground with 1 second left on the clock so at least they can try this long field goal. And the time ran out. And I'm just sitting there thinking, how does – because I know the head coach can call timeouts on the sideline and obviously the quarterback on the field. And in the clip, if you watch it, if you see it on Twitter and anywhere else, if you look like towards the Bears sideline, there's like 3 probably defensive players jumping up and down. Like you can see like they're doing like the jumping like this, like pointing, like snap the ball, like something. Like so the players are going nuts on the sideline. And the head coach, who's probably near a referee, there's at least 1 or 2 within 15 yards of him. He could have easily ran down any one of them and said timeout. Not only was the
clock, Andy Reid be running down the sideline to get the timeout.
Or he'll send Spags to do it, and then the ref will look at Andy like a godfather. He's like, yeah, he's good. He's a made man. And
but would you rather lose how the Bears lost, or would you rather lose how the Raiders lost?
God.
I think I would choose the Raiders because at least that was taken from you.
What was the center mad about?
You know, so what happened was they called a false start. So it's supposed
to hear that part.
So it's supposed to be a dead play. You know what I mean? Like stopped it. You know what I mean? But Kansas City jumped on the ball. First down.
Okay, hold on. This is that's illegal motion. It's the same hand. So this is false start and illegal motion. I don't know why they use the same hand signal.
Right.
So they end up calling illegal shift, which is this motion, but this false start and illegal motion. So I don't think they called a false start.
Well, either way it goes, basically the Raiders are looking at it like this should have been dead. We back up 5 yards.
Those aren't dead ball penalties.
You know, the false start would have been. You know, it just depends on what they called.
Did they say false start out loud? Because I was watching on my phone. And I had the volume up, and I had a little bit of vodka last night, so I can't remember exactly what the call was. I just know I heard the illegal shift call. I don't know if they ever announced false start and then had a conference and changed it, because that's what I'm seeing on the internet.
So the side judge was saying false start, but when the ref made the call, he called illegal shift. But the sideline judge, like when it first happened, the sideline judge.
Keep talking. I'm gonna pull it up.
Yeah. He looked at the other refs, and from my vantage point, I felt he was trying to express false start to the other refs. But then after their conference, they came out the conference, and the ref called illegal shift. So it was just a bunch of confusion going on in the first place.
All right, let's see if I get the whole video. Okay. So yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There you go.
See, that's what I mean. The ref that did the hand signal, that's the same hand signal. So the ref that came running in that threw the flag, he was doing this. That's the same signal. So I don't know if he was saying false start, because illegal motion and false start.
But then they met up. They talked about it, and then they came back with the illegal shift. Yeah,
which is essentially a lot of like illegal motion, legal shift is like the same. It seems like the same problem, like 2 guys moving at once, not set,
not enough people on the line. Yeah,
when they snapped the ball, if guys were moving and they weren't set, that's the illegal shift. But then it was like, so I don't think they. I don't.
It's one of those things. It's one of those things. Like Stephen A. Smith,
like they faked the snap count or something.
As Stephen A. Smith says, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it ain't a damn mongoose. Because from that standpoint, it just seems that Kansas City is the team that benefits from this stuff more than not.
We got to talk about the fact that the center snapped the ball. That's not Kansas City. Like the refs didn't make the center snap the ball.
I know.
So I get that it's a terrible way to lose, but it's also the 2-9 Raiders who do things that don't.
Who you said was going to fire their coach anyway.
Their owner won't get a regular haircut. Then you bring in the prettiest man alive, Tom Brady, to be your partner. It's like you could go to the same meeting with Tom Brady. That's not a good decision. You have a 26-year-old girlfriend. You're going to bring her around Tom Brady at these events. They don't make smart decisions in the Raiders organization. Like moving the team to Vegas is like most of their games aren't home games. Most of their games are people visiting Vegas and who also happen to be football fans. So you might get 1,000 Green Bay Packer fans in there, just people on vacation. Like the stadium fills up, but most of them aren't Raiders fans. Like it's not like definitely when you go to Kansas City, it's 60,000 red hoodies and maybe sprinkled in some other colors. But yeah, the center was irate, and I'm not sure why he was mad. Like he was mad as if somebody on Kansas City like faked their snap count or something. Like he was yelling like that. Like I said, I was watching on mute, so I don't know. But he was the most irate person. Like you snapped the ball, the guard tapped him on the leg, and it's like a 2-second pause, and then he snapped it. So, but he was yelling and pointing as if somebody on Kansas City's defensive line, like, because I think that's a penalty if you try to like mimic the snap.
Right, yeah.
So he was yelling like he was like irate like that, but I was like, we clearly saw the guard tap you, and like we know what that means, and like whatever your count is after that on that play, you snap the ball.
Right.
So, but yeah, the ref running in with the arms, like I said, that's an illegal motion penalty call. So like that's not a dead ball foul. They fumbled it, and Kansas City recovered it.
Right.
It just had to happen to Kansas City. I don't know how Kansas City only ran off 8 seconds when they got the ball back with 2:11.
Right.
I'm like, that's why I sent in the group. I'm like, their play calling is atrocious. That was the first half. When I sent that in the group. It's not a playmaker thing. It's like I don't like their play calling, and I don't think they feel like Xavier Worthy was worth the first round pick. He just does things, and like I see in Patrick's face, like, why'd you break that route off there? Like,
well, for me, it was the catch against Buffalo where he caught it, but like stretched his leg out and went out of bounds with 1 foot. So, like it took away a 30-yard gain on a basic know where you are. Like it wasn't the throw didn't carry him out of bounds.
He just ran out of bounds.
Yeah, he just caught it and stepped out of bounds. So, but yeah, so let's get to it. The game of the week, in my opinion, the battle of the top 2 MVP candidates. Lamar Jackson leading the league in passing yards. Baltimore with the number 1 offense in the league, yards and points, or number 2 scoring wise. Philly with the number 1 defensive yards given up and number 6 scoring defense. Who wins this game?
Lamar is like 23-1 versus the NFC. Nick Wright likes to quote this stat a lot, and what he said is like people who don't see him often tend to not realize
they can't adjust
how
to
elusive and how fast he is in such tight spaces. Like I think the prime example like that surprised me, the Cincinnati game when he was dropping back, and then he beat the linebacker and defensive end to the edge when they had an angle and he ran it down to like the 1-yard line. I was like, they see him all the time, and like for him
still can't stop it.
I was like, how'd you turn that corner going backwards, then sliding, and then deciding to run straight, and you beat these guys to the side, then you almost score. It's like, so I think that's gonna surprise the hell out of Philly. And then if they run the ball with Derrick Henry, I'm not saying like I think Baltimore's a better team. I just think that Lamar's just productivity against the NFC that has to be taken into account. So I like Philly as a team. I think they're probably the best team in football. I just think that what Lamar does, especially after like not a great week, his bounce backs weeks are like impeccable. Like they're 300-yard passing, 80 yards rushing. They're different kind of like, oh, y'all doubt me because he's one of the people, he pays attention to social media. He's on it, and he's been reading, he's been seeing. He saw me talk about how this dude from Philly is MVP and not the running back on his team. He knows we're talking about him, so he's gonna come out and get like 300 yards passing and probably like 4 total touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm going with Baltimore as well. Philly's got a lot. We know Mike the other night when he was arguing with me about Detroit and Chicago, he brought up the fact that Detroit had all these injuries, and they did. Some of them weren't very notable though, but they were just injuries. But when I look at Philly, for example, you already had Devontae Smith not play last week. And as of Wednesday, at least, he wasn't practicing still. Darius Slay wasn't practicing, with a concussion. Ringo is hurt. They just lost Brandon Graham for the season.
Yeah.
So this is one of those games that if Philly wins, it's going to be because Saquon had the same type of game that he had against the Rams last week. Their secondary, Baltimore secondary, can be feasted on. I just don't know that Jalen Hurts is the quarterback consistently enough to take advantage of it.
And that was, as you said that about Saquon having a big, I was thinking, but that's not where Baltimore has problems.
Right.
So especially if Devontae is out, you don't want to get in a shootout because
a whole lot of Dallas Goedert.
Yeah, Philly's best weapon and the NFL's best weapon is number 26. Yeah, you can give him the ball in the space. You can get him matched up on linebackers, but that's predicated on AJ Brown and Dallas Goedert stretching the defense out to where Saquon gets some space. But when you get the ball back to Lamar and you're dealing with that speed and you're missing defensive players, Graham not only is just a presence physically, he's a presence emotionally. It's like him and Fletcher Cox. I think they were such a driving force on that defensive front. Like he's probably undersized for his position. He's definitely been playing a long time, but yet still be playing at the level that he's playing at. Him not being there. I like Jordan Davis. I like Jalen Carter. I'm just upset that Atlanta never gets these defensive players. Like you can Uber to their practice,
right?
Like for a reasonable amount of money. Like you see these dudes, these 300-pound, 6'5" guys. You're like, nah, I'm gonna get this 265-pound guy from Iowa. I'm like, no, get the dude that's up the street. Like, what are you doing? Save a plane ticket. Go to that pro day. But yeah, like I said, I just think that Baltimore is going to win this game.
So you remember a couple of weeks ago, I gave you the stat with Lamar Jackson's record against the Steelers, and you said he only played 4 or 5 games against them. So Joe Burrow has only played 5 games against the Steelers. So I'm going to ask you a quick question. What do you think his touchdowns and interceptions are in those 5 games against the Steelers?
8-6.
11-8. So he doesn't necessarily play against the Steelers very well. He doesn't play against the Steelers very much. But the Bengals are 0-6 this year against teams that are 500 or better. Pittsburgh's defense has been lights out. Russell Wilson, they finally lost the game with him. And it took a blizzard to do it.
And a Jameis.
So every time I look at this, I want to pick Cincinnati. But I just can't do it.
I think picking Cincinnati wouldn't be crazy. I think this is a 50-50. I'm not sure what the spread is, but I think just with Joe Burrow, just his ability to get the ball. Joe and Jamar, he's down there somewhere, is a real thing.
According to my score app, and when I say lines, when I'm doing upset alert and all that, I'm using the score app. So using the score app, Cincinnati's favorite by 3.
Okay. I don't like picking against Mike Tomlin. I think he figures it out. And the way that the Pittsburgh defense attacks you up front is a problem for Cincinnati because they have to throw the ball a lot. Right. They don't have much of a run game. Joe Burrow's been outstanding, and when he connects, is all good. I just think the pressure they can put up front, that 3rd and 8 where you really need that first down and you try to get to Jamar and he's doubled, or maybe he's held a little bit and he's frustrated and he's not getting the ball early. I think Tomlin's going to be one of those coaches like, listen, I'm going to take your best option away deliberately. I'm not even going to try to disguise it. You're going to know that you can't throw the ball over here. And I'm not sure what T. Higgins' health looks like, but like I told you preseason, anything that's going to hinder him at all, he's not playing because you franchise tagged him. If you gave him a real contract, he probably would play through a pull or a strain, or he might come back for a big game.
And
He's like, you're gonna cut me this $28 million, and I'm going to another team. I'm not laying myself in the line for you. Like that's the dumbest thing about the franchise tag, in my opinion. Is like you're setting yourself up for a guy not to be focused every week.
and for those of you with no eyes on it, Will Howard just threw a red zone interception. So we're still 10-10 in the big house, 4:51 left in the third quarter. Kansas
into him.
Yeah. Kansas
him in big games.
Yep. Kansas did not show up today at the end of the third quarter. Baylor 42, Kansas 17, Texas Tech 42-3 over West Virginia. Tennessee still up 24-17, Louisville 27-7. Clemson just got a touchdown a few minutes ago, so they're up on South Carolina 14-7 with 3:22 left in the third quarter. All right, so fuck it, I'll take Cincinnati. Why not? Why not? Let's go to Orchard Park Sunday Night Football. Brock Purdy will be playing. He is in the building. He will be on the field. Don't matter.
Yeah.
Don't matter. Give me Buffalo big, and I'm talking about 31-10 or something along those lines. They have a chance to capture the AFC East already. Kansas City became the first team to clinch a playoff berth the other day. Buffalo's going to be the first team to clinch a division.
Good job, Jets.
Yeah, there you go. So, you got Buffalo as well.
I got Buffalo, yes.
The hardest game, there's always one game every week that's hard for me to pick. It wasn't the Cincinnati game. It is this game down at the compressor. You got the Chargers coming in, losers of two straight, or losers to Baltimore last Monday night. I'm sorry. Yeah, lost to Baltimore last Monday night. You got the Falcons coming off the bye week, coming off of two straight losses is what I was trying to say. The last time we saw the Falcons, they were losing 38-6, 226 total yards. So this is the type of game that the winner of this game needs to win if they have any playoff hopes at all. Because we talked about Tampa Bay's schedule.
It's cupcake for the rest of the season.
So they can catch Atlanta. So Atlanta needs this win. The Chargers, on the other hand, need to just stay in the field.
Atlanta has a tiebreaker, so that does give them
right. And the Chargers need to stay in the field in general. So both teams need this game. No J.K. Dobbins. You're going to get a whole lot of Gus Edwards and Hassan Haskins. Quentin Johnson. Can he hold on to the ball this week? Last week he reverted back. Yeah. So I'm going to take Atlanta.
And that might trickle. That might be on them all week. Because you have all the drops, and you think about like your holidays. You're not really like football focused all week long. So I see him dropping a couple more passes. I can see him pass, getting hit off his hands, and Jesse Bates picking it off. I can see something like that happen, like what Kadarius Toney was going through last year.
Right.
Like it just kept happening.
It kept piling on.
Just kept piling on. It's like every week it was something where either one was off his hands, it almost got picked, or it did get picked. It just was like, so I think that's Atlanta still can't rush the passer. That's going to be a problem until they figure out that Georgia is right up the street and they can get some of those players.
So give me Youngway.
Head over heart. I'm going heart. I'm picking Atlanta, but I can see the Chargers doing very similar things as what Denver did.
I'm picking Youngway.
No offense.
I'm taking Youngway on a last-second field goal. From Young Ho to Young Way. You know what I'm saying? Then, of course, the team that I don't really want to talk about. I'm caught up in the love triangle. You know what I'm saying? Because you got the original flame, and then you got the new love that just don't treat me right. Tennessee and Washington. First of all,
you were driving that Tennessee playoff bus.
Hey, they still got a chance to make the playoffs.
So aggressively.
They still got a chance to make the playoffs. I don't know if you've seen the Texans lately. I don't know if you've seen it.
Texans out here point shaving.
But
they try and make these bets interesting.
But that same Greyhound that Ryan Day might be on, I'm putting Benjamin St. Juste on there as well. You know what I mean? Calvin really is going to have a field day. Washington has lost 3 straight after their surprising 7-2 start. That's not the concerning part. The concerning part for me, because they're a young team, young teams lose games. The concerning part for me is that they're averaging 8 less points per game than they were when they had that 7-2 start. So usually you have a team like Cincinnati who has offense, and more offense, and whatever game they play in, they're going to score. Washington's not there yet. Tennessee's defense is good enough to win this game. Marcus Lattimore practicing, looks like he's going to play for the first time since being picked up. Will Levis probably not happy about that, even though Will Levis did not throw a pick last week. So, as I look at this, the Titans in their first 6 games, 135 passing yards per game, 5 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Since that point in time, 224 passing yards per game, 9 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. So what I'm saying is this game is going to be a lot closer than anybody thinks it has any business being. So give me Washington 28-24.
Like that, I'm taking Washington. I just feel like Jay's prime for a bounce back game. I think guys, they got to start playing instinctive. Sometimes you get these, you start off 7-2, and it feels like you shouldn't be there. They're pretty much there at the top of the NFC East. They're on everyone's darling team, and then you lose a few. I just think his resiliency is going to help him bounce back. Dan Quinn has to keep it simple. Your guy, St. Juice, like they just got to help. Like football doesn't have to be tricky. This guy needs help. We're going to help him more often than not. We're not going to have him out there on the island ever. Just don't do it, because any good quarterback's going to see like, oh, he's out there on the island. I'm taking a shot. Just don't put him in that position.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't trust him. Don't put him on the field. But
exactly.
Give him help.
And Ohio State misses. Looks like a 27-yard or so field goal. I'm trying to tell you, something is happening in the big house. I mean, I keep calling it the big house, in the horseshoe today.
Horseshoe.
Yeah, the horseshoe. Something is happening. Like Michigan's got the luck apparently. Still 10-10, 158 left in the third quarter. So then you got Houston at Jacksonville. And this is what I don't understand. And this is like in that same Eberflus thought. You're going to fire Doug Peterson. What we waiting on? Like, what are we waiting on? I don't understand.
They're going to fire everybody.
Trevor Lawrence is...
They're firing everybody.
Trevor Lawrence might play.
The coaching staff is gone. So you let them play it out. Let them write out their little checks. And then you do a full search when you fire the GM and the coach at the end of the season. You're going to get your GM and then you're going to get your coach.
Yeah. Well, I'm taking Houston, even though they're falling apart. Most of it is due to injury. But as I said a few minutes ago, they don't have anybody in the division to pressure them. They swept the Colts already. They lost to the Titans last week, but the Titans are still so far back that it would really take for Houston to implode.
Yeah, they have the best quarterback. They got the best quarterback in the division. They got the best coach.
There you go. So give me Houston, even though, remember, they played earlier this season, and it took Houston a touchdown with about 20 seconds left to beat Jacksonville in that game. So I do expect it to be somewhat close if Trevor Lawrence is playing, like he may. But if he doesn't play, then, we're talking about Mac Jones. Sorry, McCorkle. Arizona going out to Minnesota. We just talked about that in the earlier part of this.
They got Minnesota in that one.
I want to pick Arizona, but I just can't. I think that they're just too. They're too reliant on a guy that's not Cam Newton. From the standpoint of Kyler Murray will get you big plays, but he'll lose as many yards as he gains as well. Or he'll throw errant passes trying to make a play. Whereas Cam Newton, you knew 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, he was going to pick up those yards. Kyler Murray's not built in that way.
He was a real life cheat code, run pass option, first down machine.
Yeah, so give me Minnesota as well.
He was going to throw his body in there, and it was going to be intimidating. Kyler Murray could. The most intimidating thing about Kyler Murray in his attribute in the open field is that he can make you look bad.
Right.
So, like, if you're coming to break down, you make this tackle. Like he has the wiggle that can make you look bad. But Cam was going to meet you head up. Like, Are you gonna, mano a mano? Yeah, so, and that's the tough part. Like I said, I think they were just kind of playing, a little out over their skis. And it'll come back to me. Like I said, I got Seattle potentially winning that division.
All right.
Yeah, I'll take Minnesota.
All right. For my NFL upset of the week, I'll give you one guess.
Carolina over Tampa Bay?
No, even though I did think about it, I'm going with the Patriots over the Colts. So if you, that's an upset. If you look at it percentage wise, the Colts have the easiest schedule remaining in the NFL. But if you look at it, the Colts have a quarterback that can't throw the damn ball. And if he does throw it, he can't throw it to the right receiver. And if he does throw it to the right receiver, he throws it to the other team more often than not.
Yeah, I'm riding with my heart here. It's my dad's favorite team, so I'm taking. I just don't.
Colts are favored by 2.5, by the way.
They might realistically need to be in the market for a quarterback. I know they just drafted him, and it's the second year, but I know people say you give up these guys early.
We got Michigan fans out here wanting Alex Orgy. All right, so Seattle at the Jets. We both picked Seattle in that one. Now let's go to the House of Horrors.
Is Aaron Rodgers going on IR? Is he playing? Like, what's?
No, he's playing.
Because I saw so many different rumors, and he addressed a couple of them. Like,
no, he said he's playing, and he said that if he plays next year, he wants to stay with the Jets.
He said that would be the first option.
Yeah.
So I think he knows is a foot out the door.
Yeah. Then you got the Rams going to the House of Horrors, or is it just the House of Horrors for the Falcons? I don't know, but I just like saying House of Horrors. They got the Saints. The Saints are still alive in the playoff race somehow. They got the tiebreaker over a team like, say, Dallas, for example.
Race off of Dallas.
I know. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has found a new career, I guess. He's been playing very well since joining the Saints. So the Rams, not only was it Saquon, but as a team, Philly ran for 314 against the Rams last week.
Correct.
This game is the ultimate flip the coin.
Is Taysom Hill going to play like a creative player? Is he going to are they going to give him the ball 10, 12 times to run it on quarterback draws? And is he going to break like Saquon did?
What do you think the line on this game is?
New Orleans favored by 3.5.
Wrong team. Rams by 2.5.
2.5?
Yeah. So I want to trust Matt Stafford. The clutch quarterback that comes through in the big moments, even though he'll put you in the game being a big moment in the first place. But I'm going to trust the Rams. I'm going to trust the Rams. They need this game to keep pace with the division. So I'm going to take the Rams to win this game.
I'm going to take the Rams. But it would, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me.
No, it wouldn't surprise me.
If Taysom Hill, because Kamara is still a solid running back, I don't think they give him the ball at the frequency that I like. I remember I watched the game against Atlanta, and I watched a couple of the Saints games. I just feel like they could use him a little better, and I'm not sure they do. But he doesn't threaten you the way Saquon does.
Right.
So I don't think, but I think Taysom Hill and his style of running, because like Saquon can do what Kamara and what Taysom Hill does, and I think if they're gonna look at the film from last week against Philly, and they say, you know what, we can exploit these with these kind of runs, then I think they can win. But the problem is, no NFL teams rely on the run to beat you. They always want to exploit you through the air. And I think Derek Carr is going to throw way too many passes against a team that just gave up over 300 yards rushing, and that's how the Rams are going to win.
You know what the wildest thing about Alvin Kamara is? He's never had a 1,000-yard season.
What?
He's never ran for 1,000 yards in a season. Ain't that crazy?
That doesn't even make. How close did he get?
The closest he ever got was 932. and everything else is under 900.
He caught a lot of passes too, so he was a scrimmage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is strange. That he
But
never
that's
had a
just
touchdown.
nuts, right? Yeah. But so I was going to pick Carolina over Tampa until I realized Carolina has the worst run defense in the league, and Tampa Bay can actually run the ball, or they attempt to run the ball this year. Over the last few years, we were talking about how they didn't have 1,000-yard rusher since Doug Martin, but they weren't even necessarily trying to run the ball. They would get Rashad White on some gadget plays, but now they have a Sean Tucker, they have a Bucky Irvin, and they're going to get busy against Carolina's defense tomorrow. So I'm taking Tampa Bay, even though I think it will come down to the final possession or two. Dave Canellis, the Carolina coach, of course, was the offensive coordinator for Tampa last year.
Bryce Young's been playing with a lot of confidence too.
Bryce Young's playing with a lot of confidence. So I think, and Chuba Hubbard's one of the top rushers in the league. So I think Carolina has a chance to win this game. They just won't.
Yeah.
I put it like that.
Yeah,
then, of course,
I think Todd Bowles will stick to the run as a defensive head coach. It's like, hey, stick to this. We're like what I talked about the Kansas City play calling. Kansas City, for some reason, they don't take advantage of the weaknesses of the other team. They just want to just do stuff.
Right.
Like they people shouldn't be in games with them with all the talent that they have defensively. And it's like, I don't know what Matt Nagy's thinking. I don't know if he's trying to get that Chicago job back, but they need to figure it out. But I think Todd Bowles like, man, we're just gonna run the ball. We'll keep it simple. Baker's a big, he's a big time. He's a gamer, so
yeah.
So
we're starting the fourth quarter in the horseshoe, by the way. Still 10-10. Keep your eye out on it. Clemson and South Carolina in the fourth quarter, still 14-7. Tennessee's up 31-17 now over Vandy after falling behind 17-7. And in the game that only I care about, Army with a 22-17 lead over UTSA. So finally, Monday Night Football, we got the Denver Broncos playing host to the Cleveland Browns. So it's one thing when you got Jameis at sea level. What happens when he goes a mile high?
He's going to give you some gems and some sound bites. He should be mic'd up all the time. But just give me Denver, top 5 pass defense, top pass run defense against a guy who tends to throw, interceptions, has a habit of throwing interceptions.
Right.
I like Nick Chubb. I think he'll be able to run the ball well, but in the same sense, is like it's you have a top tier defense and you have a backup quarterback.
Keep it simple.
Sub 500 team, and Sean Payton. Much as I don't like him, I think he's doing a good job in Denver. The cupboard wasn't bare when he got there, so he didn't have to really build much. They made some great draft picks, so it's like, yeah, I'll give him his flowers and say they'll win on Monday night.
Oh yeah, and I messed that up earlier too. Kennesaw State, that 12 was against Louisiana Tech. They beat FIU last week. But yeah, so those are your picks. NFL, college. We in the middle of these games right now. It's a great weekend, and I want you all to enjoy it. Join us back on Tuesday, as we get the next to last college football playoff ranking. The pre-conference championship game. We will know who's in the matchups. Remember, one more time real quick, the winner of the A&M Texas game plays Georgia for the SEC title. If Miami beats Syracuse, it's Miami SMU for the ACC. If not, Clemson and SMU. If Ohio State wins this game, which a lot of y'all didn't think that would be a question, if they win this game, they get Oregon in the Big 12 or the Big 10 title game. If they lose, Penn State is next up. If they lose somehow to the Terps, then Indiana gets in. And then, of course, in your Big 12, easiest solution, Iowa State, BYU, Colorado already won. In Arizona State, they all win. It's Iowa State against Arizona State. And then, I know, man, I'm tired. You know what I'm saying? And then you got the Sun Belt. Louisiana's up 20-16 right now. If they hold on, they're going to the championship game potentially against Marshall. Army and Tulane in the AAC. Boise is waiting on the winner. If UNLV wins against Nevada today, Boise UNLV. If not, Boise Colorado State. MAC Miami of Ohio against Ohio. We'll see how it all plays out from there. But we'll be back. Thanks for joining us. Of course, do all the free things. Like, review, subscribe, share, rate. Those are also the good things. Do not bring feelings to a fact fight.
Don't do it.
He is the one and only Mr. Logical, representing the Garden State. And I am 2-5 down here in the Alamo. Lone Star, we love you. Peace.